Test. There you go. All right, everybody. Thank you for coming in tonight. Let me swap over here. So there, up there is the minutes, if you didn't see them, from Scott. Thank you, Scott. It's the last month's minutes. I'll go over them real quick and just give them a rundown if anybody has any questions or anything. If this needs to be louder or something, let me know. It's pretty loud right now. So. All right, so last month we had 23 in attendance. I'm not broadcasting right now, so our treasurer's report last month was 8,100, about roughly the same, aren't we, Crowbar?
Well, it is $8,004.32.
Okay, down a little bit.
Down a little bit because Christmas came to the club and I spent $154.69 on raffle stuff.
All right, some nice raffle stuff too. I've got one over there set up for all the President's Challenge stuff. I may grab another kit over there through. How many brought something for President's Challenge tonight?
What did you say?
How many brought something for President's Challenge? The SKU Challenge? All right, we've got a good amount of hands there. All right. I looked at my SKU and went,
That was my sentiments exactly.
yeah. Let's see, how'd the wig stand go? The wig stand at the Cedar Wood Shop? I missed that one. I wanted to be there, but I ended up having to go out to my aunt's house that weekend. So, unfortunately, they needed my help out there. So it went pretty good out there. I saw a few pictures out there from it. So, yeah. Looks like North Carolina just went past us for the symposium a couple weeks ago. I don't know if anybody went down there or not to North Carolina. Let's see, Woodworking Club, if you need to contact anybody here, Joe DiPietro is the main guy. I think we got a couple of folks around here, Jim Anderson, he's our host for the night. Ed is usually here at the table, he's on vacation, so he missed his night. Had a little accident over there with his epoxy too. Let's see. So we talk about the Flannel Vest Festival, the Flannel Fest Festival. I don't know why I said fest twice, but something that the club can participate in the demonstrations for next year. So. Yeah, I think it was just back in October, wasn't it, Cody? That it just passed? Yeah. So something I might keep an eye out for next year, for October next year, that time frame. Demonstrations we got coming up. Steve did the SKUs last month. Cody's got some Halloween form techniques. And then Jerry has got pendants next month. So we got January and all of next year open, I think. If anybody has anything they want to see for coming up next year, any certain type of demonstration or anything, don't hesitate to ask. We'll see if we got somebody that can do it. Let's see. That's pretty much all the notes there. So that's kind of the old news. Anybody got any new news? No? We don't have anybody visiting tonight? New visitors? Looks like all the familiar faces are here. Anything else anybody wants to bring up? Mike, do you raise your hand? Or are you just, no? Thinking?
Looks like an auction car to me. He nodded his head or something.
I don't know. Crowbar?
Yeah, hey, for the wig turning, I think it was a blast, and you guys that were in attendance, thanks for coming. It was great.
So who all was there to turn?
Sam,
I wasn't there to turn.
well, while you were stopping by to visit,
I do.
give everybody a hard time. Thank you. John was there.
That John, not this John.
Doug was there.
Who?
Doug and Anthony.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Bob visited.
Who?
Bob.
All right.
Stop.
I was reading what my notes are on it.
I think it's Sam. Yeah. Posted those pictures, that's good. I see the pictures on Facebook.
Did anybody make it over to Turning Saturday for that one? That was like about the same weekend, I think it was.
Turning Saturday.
But not the turning, whatever the mark
It
and
was the wig thing, and there was only about 6 people that showed up there.
over at the one over in Bloomington?
Wilmington, yeah.
Okay, that's what I was thinking about. It popped in my head as Turning Saturday.
Only a handful there, so they picked up at noon and left, and one person was coming in at noon, so. They might have it again in the spring. Once again, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
What's the total number of wig stands, Crowbar? How many are you at?
455. All of you guys that were there and did wig stains, I got them home. I did absolutely nothing on them. So I bought a couple here that need to be finished yet. So I got to get caught up on yard work outside. So
Yeah, it's been a warm November for that too.
yeah, 50 degrees.
Yeah. That was warm enough for me to power wash my deck. Probably should wait till spring for that though. I don't have anything else. Anybody got any new business or anything they want to bring up? No? All right. Let me get some tickets out and we'll get started on show and tell. I just saw the blue one. All right. Oh, there it is. All right. So whoever wants to go ahead and start, you got anything? Mike, do you have something?
I'm just going to stand right here. It's the 2 walnut wig stands on the end here.
These two?
Are some that I've moved up and put together. You just leave them right there.
I just want to show them from the camera.
Oh, okay. That's all right.
It also helps when I put the camera on the screen, I know. There we go.
Anyway, you just got to use what stuff you've got, and so that's what they are.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Nice.
block of 1 inch by 3 inch by 12 inch long blocks. And then cut up those blocks into segments. And then in so doing, I colored some of them blue. The other one's supposed to be clear or white, but I had trouble again with that. For some reason, they did a coloring on their own. And that's one of the problems. I haven't figured that out yet.
You use regular type on blue or?
I used Elmer's, like I always do, just on the wood segments that are adjacent to each other. The other things, I used JB glue, epoxy, and clear, and that turned out pretty good. But here again too, if you look at the piece, you'll see some cracks in the epoxy area in the resin, and I'm not sure what does that. Because when I cast it, there wasn't any, but when I finished it up, it showed up. I'm wondering if when it glues together and cures, maybe there's stresses in there that starts messing with things. It's the only thing I can come up with.
You want to try a cast acrylic for the clear pieces.
Yeah, might do that. But there's some other issues I want to try to work through to try to get rid of some of the hinky things that I found that turned up in finishing this. But I don't know if I'll do another one right away. I may study on that and then do some other things in the meantime. So we'll see. So that's that.
John Freckler from Decatur. Did some wig stands, and almost all of the turning on spindles was done with the skew, practicing a little bit. Did one more hummingbird house, and I did it all with the skew. And then I did a live edge. This was a pin oak, and this was a piece I got at the last meeting. I don't do a lot of wet turning, but I decided I wanted to try this one. I hadn't done it for a while. So I turned this one wet and dried the wood in the microwave. And that turned out pretty good. Pretty good. I did not leave enough wall thickness for me to turn it again. So I just wound up leaving it whatever shape it was and sanding and finishing. That's it.
All right, Cody Jones, Champaign, Urbana. So this is a piece out of yew, hollow vessel, and if you want to see how I did this and the similar kinds of pieces that I do, I'll be giving a demonstration afterwards, so stick around for that. But this was a fun project, some punky wood in there, some inclusions, and just a lot of fun, and I'm pretty happy with the shape. And so, yeah, yew. So, yeah.
Chris from Champaign. I have first a bowl out of ginkgo. Got some ginkgo from somebody recently and turned surprisingly nicely. Interesting coloration. I then did a skew stuff. This is also ginkgo, but there's no finish on this, and I don't have a way to hollow things, so it's like this deep. So it's not going to serve much benefit as a base, but that was the idea. And then last meeting, Gary came and said he had some Bradford pear, and so both of these are out of Bradford pear. I went and got from him there, and so both live edge bowls. So that's what I've got.
Did you do a skew one?
Steve, or Chris, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Chris, how'd you like the smell of that ginkgo?
I did not notice anything particularly good, so I think I got it from some people who I met at the farmer's market this summer while selling bowls, And so I think it sat in the backyard for quite a while, so I didn't notice any bad odor. I also tend to wear a respirator most of the time, so.
Steve Smith from Champaign. So for SKU, got a couple new pen kits. So these are the Pool Q pen kits from Penn State. So I got 3 different ones on there, and I just open it up. So a nice little ball on that one. So a little kit on that one. And this one, if anybody hasn't used it, it's a honeycomb in the epoxy. And so those ones have a tendency to chip out real bad, especially on that. You get that real thin pieces here on the with the aluminum. There's not much epoxy holding that in there. So sharp skew on that one is pretty essential to get that one without much tear out. And then this was one of the half-finished mold pieces from a few weeks ago. So there wasn't a whole lot left on the tenon, but these turned out pretty nice. One thing I did try with this one, and unfortunately it got away from me a little bit on the on the drill press. So basically I'm doing a little maker's mark cut out on my laser, just a little 1-inch recess in there, glue it in, but we got a little shifty on the end.
Do you use a Forstner bit for that?
Yep.
With the tip?
Yep. Yep. And then if you have any little bit of tin or whatever, it's in there.
Paul Wolby, Gator. A few years ago, remember I bells. I haven't made it century, so I got out about a month ago. I definitely bring them in terms of bells. Christmas. In a little bit different style. Remember in that demo I did, I used these they were tapered in. And this I just made straight. You can see the difference in the shape. Too, by the way, I got these for staves. These are just a straight cut. It's a lot harder to get your points right on the staves. Whereas if you're like a straight cut, you line up pretty well. You go with the stave cut. And for the skew, I made a handle for one of the bells, and wouldn't have worked anyway, but after I got it all done, I realized it's got a crack in it. And it's way too big for that bell, and it doesn't look good anyway, so I've got to remake it. I just cut that off, and I don't know if I can turn that down, so make it a little smaller. This is for a Christmas ornament. Got an eye up.
So what do you mean between a stave and a straight?
Stave is cut at an angle.
An angle and an angle, so compound angle.
That's a stave, and then the regular cut is cut just 30 degree.
Right.
This is bevel and it's
Are those a solid block at the end? You know, like, are those a solid block, or do you have them kind of like a bell shape? You know, like with doing a hollow, doing a segmented form, you've got a bowl shape. Do you have a bell rough shape, or is it just a block of?
It's just staves, just 6 staves put together.
Okay.
I made a jig for it, and the table saw was, that, you know, when you make it, you can exact. And if it's off a half a degree, then time you go around, then you're 3 degrees off and you got a gap. And that's really hard to get it right. So.
Well, my name's Kurt Rush, over in Danville. This is obviously a necklace stand, and I did this all with the skew pretty much. Not this wasn't done with the skew, obviously, and the guys did. And this wasn't all done with the skew, but the whole shaft was. Did it in 3 pieces. They put together with dowels and things, made out of walnut. And I did not make these little beads. I just drilled a hole in them. I got them from a craft store in brass.
Hello, I'm Terry Rhodes from St. Joseph. My show and tell piece is a donk, and this one turned out to be the prototype, as I didn't hold it down good enough. I used super glue, and I probably should have used a clamp, and I had too much air trapped in there, so it pushed the lid off a little bit, pushed his hat off a little bit, so there's a gap there. But anyway, turned the beads by hand. My skew piece was supposed to be a snowman ornament, but I forgot to leave enough room for the hat. And then my puff glue, it's probably 20 years old or older, and it wasn't working too good. And the carrot nose sticking out pretty good, but it wasn't drying. And so I used a hair dryer on it, but then I blew it off and then rolled across it. Got a smashed orange nose, smashed carrot nose. Somebody ate it. Thank you. Also, I got some pieces last month from Brad that was thought was rough turn from some that Dwight had done, but some in that box were finished bowls. So Diane polished them up a little bit, so I brought them in for the raffle. And this sycamore piece is really pretty that he did. Oh, he didn't sign this one, but the others are signed. Dwight done them, so thank you, Dwight.
Familiar.
I like the shape of that dish.
Dave Resernis. This was one of the wig stands done at CU Shop. Scott, you recognize this part?
Yeah.
And I think Chris recognized that, and Doug. Everybody was involved in that one. And the skew is a love-hate relationship, and I hated it. That's why I only did this small part, and that was it. I had enough. So that's it. Thank you.
All right, I think it's, anybody else? Larry, Mike? Nothing? I don't think we've got anything else to put out there. All right. We'll go through the President's Challenge stuff. We got a couple of chunks of logs here, a little thick lengths of small stuff, and I got one of these nice little wall things here. Throw right in. All right, so blue ticket. First number is 359.
There it goes. It's not wood.
Next number is 358. This one was an oak. It looks like an oak too. All right. 362.
I'll re-gift.
Re-gift? All right. Three, 6, 5. Jerry,
Crowbar.
Crowbar at it? All right. 360.
I suppose I'll take over.
Another chunk of wood for you, Chris. All right, I got
You want it?
chunk of Bradford pear. This is a piece of the red tickets. Another piece of oak. And some more pin lengths, and we got some huskies here. Some nice set of hex wrenches. First number 746. Yes, 6. 746. That again.
Oh boy.
Fine. You need some Bradford paper.
I might though.
That's real good.
That's the only thing you think Bradford paper is good for.
I'd like to mention, one of these pieces that Dwight made was dated 2001. I've seen some in that box were from 98. So I'll be bringing in some more, and there's a few more that were in that box that were finished.
744. Next one up. Hey, it's not wood either. That's right.
I've got a thousand of them at home.
All right, 750. I swear I'm not pulling the same people on these tags, because Crowbar's got his too. All right, last one for a chunk of wood. 748.
Oh, right, gift.
Paul, you don't want a chunk of oak?
I got more wood than I can turn out.
I think that's everybody's problem. 740. Mike, you want it?
I'll take it.
All right. I'll bring it over there to you.
Thank you.
I'll just put it underneath the table here out of your way. And when you're ready to go, holler and we'll help you out with it. All right, we're going to take a quick little break. I didn't bring the water in, but I got water on the truck there. We'll grab that. Yeah, keep it cold outside. So I've got the water out there. I'll bring that in just a moment. Crowbar will have tickets here for sale. We'll go get them tickets. And put a tool for a night too. We do some laptop work right over?
Yeah, that's up, so.
Okay. I can bring up cable.
Now I got some pieces. So we can
Right, it put CA in there. Yeah. Wow.
If anybody needs pulleys, for some reason we've got a couple pulleys. I have no idea what they would be good for, but if anybody wants them, they're more than welcome to them. And anybody have an idea for members challenge next month? Holler something out.
Live edge? Hollow?
Huh?
A hollow form?
We can do that. Make a Cody hollow for him.
either a hollow form or like a crappy piece of wood.
Crappy piece of wood.
Surprising, unconventional, that kind of thing.
No.
A Peanuts Christmas hollow form.
No, that's why I avoided getting a piece of wood so far.
Where is this?
Oops, go ahead. Go on. Well, I'm just setting it up here.
There's gotta be something kind of like Cody and
Let's go to this.
Put it in there, glue it in, and put it on. When we were on the first, it was slightly
general hollowing steps. Then I'm going to go through kind of the advantages of using some of the root balls, the stumps like that kind of thing. And so advantages or things to consider with that. And then lastly, we might do a little on the lathe and talk about planning and kind of design choices as you go through this. So that's kind of the outline that we're going to go through. So first, we're going to go through hollowing in general, and I'm going to blatantly steal all of this stuff from like Mike Mahoney and Trent Bosch, who are, you know, good professional turners. And so last year at the symposium, I watched both of them for quite a few demonstrations, and at the symposium this year, and they all follow kind of the same steps. And so I'm going to go through those because they do it well, they do it quickly, and they all kind of use the same steps. So I'm going to be going through that. So this image here, this is from a YouTube video of Trent Bosch's, and he has this image on a lot of his material. These are his steps, and so I have the link to the YouTube video there as well. So if and when I send this presentation out so you can look back at it, you can watch that and hear from him, but you're going to be hearing from me from him now. So the steps for hollowing, you start with your log, and then the next thing, you rough out your outside shape. So here you've got your outside shape, and the important things are that you've got a good crisp tenon, and that's going to give you a good stable, you know, piece that you can work with. So make sure it's a good crisp. Don't get it that thin at the end. Keep some mass on here if you can, because that'll make it heavier at the bottom and more stable. If it's too thin here and you're trying to hollow this whole thing and you're holding it from a tiny little piece, you're going to get chatter. So keep your mass at the bottom, and then you can turn it and you can hollow the inside, imagining where that outside will be, but you finish out that outside. And then last thing is that a tip from David Ellsworth for hollow forms is that you can actually like finish the outside nice. Like you can go ahead and finish it and sand it and everything. But if you're turning green wood, and a lot of people like turning and hollowing green wood just because, I mean, it's a lot nicer. If you try and sand it immediately, you're going to gunk up your sandpaper. But if you hollow it, in the time it takes to hollow it out, the outside will dry enough that you can then use sandpaper afterwards. Just because you've got it spinning, you're making it thinner, you're losing moisture as you go, so you can finish it then. But I usually don't finish it all the way at this point, or even like put too much effort into sanding it, because if your piece comes off the lathe and then has a big dent in it, then you've got to go back and refinish it anyway. Not that that's ever happened to me, but it could happen. Okay, so you've got your outside shape. The first step that you need to do for hollowing is put a little divot in the center, and that's just going to center your drill bit. Just makes it easier. After that, drill a hole to the bottom. You can either use the actual tailstock with the Jacobs chuck and a drill bit, or what I've started doing because I saw them doing it, it's quicker. You can use a drill bit. It's either held in a pair of pliers, like clamping pliers, or you can make your own set, you know, your own tool that's just a drill bit, and you can do it by hand, and that seems to be a lot quicker. But the important thing, and I've gotten it in all caps here, is to measure. Measure out how thick, or like how thick you want your bottom to be, where your bottom's going to be at, and drill to that length. Because like either you eyeball it and you drill too deep and you go into your tenon and you finish the entire thing, it looks nice, and then you take the tenon off and you have a hole. That's not fun. Or you don't go deep enough, and this happens to me all the time even still, but you're like, well, I don't want to go too deep, and so you drill to about here, and then you get close to the end and you realize it's too heavy, and so then you're trying to hollow it and you don't have a hole all the way to the bottom. Now you've got just a little cone at the bottom that you can't ever get rid of because your tool's this far away. So measure at the beginning, set your bottom, and go for it. Know that your measurement's correct. Drill it once at the beginning and have done with it. And then one of the other big things is, do you want to use a Forstner bit or not? And the next step is going to be to widen the hole. And I used to use a Forstner bit, but if you're doing end grain, so let's say, this piece here, the grain's going this way, trying to use a Forstner bit and going into that, you make a lot of smoke and it takes a lot of force and effort, and you can do it, but by the end your Forstner bit's dull and then your Forstner bit's dull. So instead of using the Forstner bit the way that those guys, Mike Mahoney, Trent Bosch, they just use their tool, they drill a small hole or a smallish hole, and then they come in with a tool, and in 10 seconds they make the same size hole as the Forstner bit. That, you take a lot of time cranking it, making smoke, pulling it out to clear it out, and so I don't really do that anymore. So make your hole, widen the hole, those are the first steps, and then you can start removing material. So remove material near the top. We're not going to final thickness, we're just getting rid of some of the material near the top, and then as that fills up with sawdust, and the sawdust is going to be pushed out to the side, and so you can't get to the edge, or you're fighting to get through a bunch of sawdust that's like gummed up on the outside, and then we can go deeper. And so, match up that shape, go deeper, but we're still keeping quite a bit of mass at the bottom. That's one of the important things, is that we don't want to remove all the way at the bottom and do the top at the end. We want our mass near the headstock and our mass down low, and it'll keep it sturdy. Then we can go back, we can do the top, we can hollow it to our final thickness, and if you would have done your final thickness sooner, and if you got greenwood, in the time that you go back to do it, that may have moved already, and so that's why do your final thickness and match everything up kind of at once. So we're doing the top here, clear it out, match up to the bottom or where the bottom could be. So in this spot here, the dotted line is showing where the bottom will be, but we still got that mass. And so we're hollowing it where it will be, and then after we get that final hollowing in the middle, then we can go and finish up the bottom on the outside, match it up to our inside, and there we're good. So done, easy as that. Trent Bosch, it took about 13 minutes to hollow out a good vessel, and so it should be really easy and quick, and that's what we all have come to find, right? So is it really that easy? For me, not yet, and I don't know if anyone here would agree with that. So what are the tough parts to this? For those of you that have tried hollowing, where are the hang-up points? What makes it trickier? What makes it tough?
Right under the shoulder.
It's right under the shoulder, so getting this part up here, getting that hollowed. Yep, okay. What about it's hard? Seeing it, reaching it.
Not having the right tool to get there.
Okay, not having the right tool to get there for sure. Okay. What else? What are some other tricky things? No. Nothing. Everyone's.
Don't break your arm getting in there.
Yeah, not breaking your arm, getting in there and cranking into it, not having the tools. I only have easy wood tools, and I've got like a hollow turner, or it's just got like the hook, and then I've got straight tools. So really, if you just have one hook, you can get to that shoulder, depending. But I would say some of the other parts that I find tough or have found tough is not knowing thickness. If you're inside of a full piece, you can't see it. You've got the tool, you're working in there blind, you don't know how thick it is. And so, you go out the side or you get it off and then it's really heavy because you've got it too thick. Or the other one that I run into this issue all the time, I don't have an air compressor. And so, I turn for 30 seconds, now it's full of sawdust and I can't get rid of it. And so it takes me 2 minutes to clear it out. I've either got a straw or like a hook tool to pull it out, and that takes a while. So if you've got an air compressor, it makes it quicker, but still that seems to take a while, and that makes it tougher. So those are some things that I have found tough in the past.
In turning green wood, also if you don't stop often enough, your chips are going to break, pack in there, and you're going to have a really hard time getting the tool out in order to try to clear it out. Absolutely. I mean, they end up just packing together hard, and they can bind up your tool or just give you a long time getting them out. So here I've got a slide of what I think of it as advantages of crappy wood. I say that because John Jordan's got the phrase, that life's too short to work with crappy wood. I kind of enjoy it. I think there are some advantages. And so by crappy, I kind of mean just unconventional. So the root balls,
The piece that I brought in today had some real punky spots, cracks, that kind of thing, voids, crotches. I think there are advantages. So one, the holes make for easy clearing of material. As I'm going through this, it clears itself out. I don't have to stop the lathe all the time, which is really nice. Also, if you can't see your wall thickness, with this, you can see it. You can watch and look at the entire thing to see your wall thickness. I say it doesn't crack as much. I don't know for sure if that's true, but cracking is, the different sized rings, as they lose moisture, they shrink in on each other and cause pressure. But with this, you've got a lot of voids and inclusions in, space that to me feels like it relieves pressure. And so I don't think that it cracks as much. This has come inside and outside many times. And there are a few cracks and checks, but I think that it does better than if you've got one big piece that's got, the pith in. So I don't know. I mean, this has 30 different piths. They're small little piths, but there are a bunch of them. So I don't know if that's necessarily true, but it feels okay. And then with the holes, you can get inside, you can finish up with a Dremel. I think that it offers much more opportunity. So, what different things can you make with this? Not many. You can make a plate. That's about what you can do. But with that, you can make a whole lot of things. I mean, you could cut that into slices and make a bunch of plates, or you can make a bunch of hollow vessels. There's just, I think, a lot more opportunity, and you get like pretty interesting wood, the different grain patterns, the stresses in there. If you're thinking of crotches, that's where you get, the fiddleback, chatoyance, that kind of thing. I say exciting because if you do have one of these pieces and you got really thin pieces that fall apart and break apart, that's exciting. So a lot of advantages. And I would say that you don't have to be a good wood turner to do these. I don't consider myself a really good wood turner because it takes me a long time. I use sandpaper a lot. But like Mike Mahoney, Trent Bosch, they whip these out after they use, a tool. It's got a great finish on it. I'm using Easy Wood tools. I've got a lot of chip out. But at the end, I've got decent pieces. And I think that the shape and what I see in there is decent. But I don't think that I'm a good wood turner. But doing these allow for that. Because, one of the things that wood turners measure themselves by is, hey, can I get that wood thickness consistent all the way through? With this, you can constantly check that. I mean, depending how much air is in this, you can see your tool as it's spinning to watch as it goes to see where your thickness is. Or if there's not as much space like in that one, and we've got this one here that's a lot, there's a lot more wood, you may not see your tool as you go, you can stop it and actively look in there and you can see your thickness here and there a lot easier than measuring. If it doesn't crack as much, that's also an indicator. And you can finish up at the end. If you can get rid of the things that you have messed up on and people don't notice it. With this kind of wood, you can cover up those mistakes because you don't know what the natural edge bark looked like originally. Whereas if you've got just a block of wood that the grain's all straight grain, you can see where there's a blemish. With that, you don't know what was natural or what's been touched up, that kind of thing. So you can fake it a little better. And then I say, what do I mean by more opportunity? I say that you've got more features that can be highlighted, so different grain. I mean, in this one, if you look at it afterwards, there's a bunch of purple colors, and that's one thing that in these U roots, there's a lot of purple colors and red colors in there, which I think are awesome. You can have a wider range of shapes applied. Like I mentioned, this is a plate. You can do anything that you want with that one. And then I say that you have more wood to work with. What I mean by this, so this is a piece I brought in for show and tell. You can see what this shape is, right? We as wood turners know that this is round, but even if you're not a wood turner, you know that this shape still has this shoulder on this side, and your mind kind of fills that in. This piece did not start with that shoulder. And so this piece is actually about a third bigger than it actually is because your mind kind of fills in the spaces. And yes, you could do that with any normal piece of wood and just like turn it off center. But with the like natural edge, it's, I don't know, it fills it in a little better. You know, we'll go to this one, and it's like a full, you can see the full like side shape of this, even though there are a bunch of voids and inclusions. So does that make sense? Yeah, so that's what I mean when you have more wood to work with than you actually do. So this was the block of wood that I started with for this piece. And, you know, I didn't know what I was going to be doing with it to start with. I cleared off some material. So on the left, I cut off a little bit more and basically just flattened off the top so that it would fit on the lathe. And then this is what it looks like spinning. So that's the lathe that I'm working with. It's got 10-inch diameter. It's a mini lathe, but it works. And you can see that it's not completely cylindrical. And if it was cylindrical, I would have a lot smaller piece that I'm working with. And that's one of the things that as you go and get more confident and are able to see like the outside shape, and that's something that hopefully we'll do, but if you see the outside shape, you can make it bigger than what it actually kind of starts with. So that's the piece that turned into this one. And then my last thoughts before we do a little bit on the lathe is it's a mix of planning and constantly reevaluating. So I used a live center, a spur chuck, or a spur center, yeah, and a live center, and go between centers. Because if you use a faceplate, well, one, how are you going to use a faceplate on this? Like it's not going to happen. Or if you used like a worm center, worm drive, you have already set up what your piece's center is going to be. The center, not only the center, but also like the alignment. And so that you're like limiting yourself. As you go, you don't know what that shape's going to be. So I start it, and you know I have it here that feels balanced, feels good. But after I do a few cuts, I say, well, let me readjust it, and I'll move it over a ½ inch, that kind of thing, and figure out what gives me the most, the thickest spot at the bottom or the thickest spot at the top, or if I want to include the curve, the missing piece, so that I end up having this missing piece at the end, those kinds of things. So I would highly recommend going between centers. Use, safety and try and make it balanced, but I would highly recommend going between centers. And then your initial planning also involves figuring out what's going to be your top, what's going to be your bottom, what's going to be your general shape, and then really importantly, I think, is the hole. And we'll talk through kind of each of those. But the top and the bottom, these have similar shapes. It's fat on one side, skinny on the top, but they're upside down. And so figure out what you want to be the top, what you want to be the bottom, what your general shape is, and that I would say look online and look up a bunch of hollow vessels and have, scroll through them and pick out some shapes that you find are decent, or if you know in your mind what shapes you want or like, but you can apply any of those shapes to a block of wood like that, and depending on how big your block of wood is, maybe you're limited on what shapes you can use. But for this one, this would work well for doing this kind of piece, because I can use this part here as the top, and all of this spot here is going to be the empty hole. Do you guys kind of see that? Does that make sense? It can be kind of weird to think about, but that could be a general shape that I apply to this piece as is. Okay? And then I think that the hole is important as well. So I can go back to these two pieces because they're similar shapes. This one has a circular hole at the top, right? And we all know, because it's symmetrical here, we know where that hole is going to be, but maybe you don't want to show that hole. So we can go to this piece. We know, this again has the symmetrical here. We know that the hole is going to be coming in. I'm hollowing it from here, but you can't see the hole, right? So you can think about that at the beginning and plan where you're going to have your center at, so that way you don't see your hole. Interestingly, with the sphere, you can have a lot of choices. If you've got a donut chuck, you can make a full-blown sphere and that would have inclusions and stuff. And then if you use like that donut chuck I brought in a few times ago, you can actually hollow it from many spots, and because it's a sphere, it'll always work or should always work out. But for these other ones, you know, you're kind of set from the beginning. But what's interesting is that if I hollow it from this, we know where that hole would be. But if I cut it off on the bandsaw at this angle and then presented the piece like this, it would take a little while of figuring out how you hollowed it, because you can't see the hole and it doesn't match what we think of as the symmetrical, it sits up straight up like this. So by hiding where that hole that you hollow from is, you can actually like do some interesting design thoughts with that. So does that kind of make sense? Okay. And then I'll show this piece here. This is a work in progress, and this is to kind of show what those like inclusions, you know, the holes in the side, what those look like. And those are just spots that go in deep, right? And so I knew that I was going to have one there, and I put it at the top so that almost immediately I'm clearing material out, and that's making my job a lot easier, and I can also see inside of it. One other thing is that if you know that this is going to be a deep spot that's not going to be on the outside, go ahead and drill that out immediately. I just took a drill bit and I drilled a hole in there to make my job even easier to start clearing material out. And I would recommend doing that on, you know that that's going to be gone. So whatever you do to this spot isn't going to matter. You're not going to see it as long as you make your thickness and bring it out to the edge. Okay? And so with this, I know that that's the deepest spot, so I went ahead and made a hole. But over here, maybe I want my thickness a little bit, I want my wall thickness a little bit thicker, so that may still be present or not. So like you can kind of choose that, but drill that out, make your job easier so you can see inside of it so it can clear out material. So that's kind of the main things I wanted to say about holes. So up till this point, are there any questions about anything? We'll do a little bit more, we'll do some stuff with that piece there, but are there any questions on hollowing, designing?
Yeah, when you start with a piece, do you see in your mind's eye what it will be? Or is it a process that by the time you get to those up there, it's a surprise to you that where it's coming from?
It's a little of both. So I'm going to walk around because I can't reach that one, it's a heavy piece. It's a little of both. So if I've got this piece here, I see that it's a little wider at the top, but at the same time, like if I look at it from this side, it's not necessarily wider. And so here, I would probably just put it on the lathe, spin it and see what it kind of looks like and see what my shapes are. We're going to go through that here in a minute. But I would also, at the beginning, I can look at this and say, like, that's a deeper spot. I'll hold this up. That right there is a deeper spot. So if I put my center there, and then I hollow around it, or like make my outside shape around it, you're not going to see the hole that I hollow through. If I put it there, you're going to see that hole. And if I put it there, you also have a wider hole. Like, let's say that you wanted to hollow it from this side, and you put the hole here, and you're doing an inch wide hole. You don't have as much room, you can't maneuver as much through an inch wide hole as if I would have put the center through here. That's a big hole that as I hollow it, it'll be 2-3 inches in diameter, and that's a lot easier to work with. So, but I'll put it on the lathe, I'll spin it, I'll maybe like round it a little bit and make it kind of symmetrical or kind of cylindrical, and then I'll reevaluate and say, okay, now what shape do I see, what size, what direction. So it's a little of both. I have a plan at the beginning, kind of, and then I constantly adjust it. Yeah, good question. Other questions?
How much dirt and gravel do you run into, and what does it do to your tools?
Yeah, so the question was how much dirt and gravel do I run into? And I usually try and clean them off pretty good. So that piece there, well, I'll come back around to it. See, I set that one away because I wasn't planning on talking about it too much. But this piece here, these are the branches coming up. So this part would have been out of the ground. But down here is we were actually starting to get into the ground. And you can see, let's see. So right there, that's actually dirt that's in there right now. And so that I would have taken the chainsaw through, and that would have been a pleasant experience. But as you clean it up a little bit, you can use just like an awl or a screwdriver, whatever, chip it out. You can use a power washer or even just a hose to clean it out. A lot of it I do just with, an awl and clean it out. And so usually the outside isn't too bad. The part that's annoying is when you actually get into the piece. And this one, I think that spot right there actually still does have a little bit of dirt inside of it because those roots will grow around those inclusions and around some rocks. And so you do find them on the inside. I only have like the Easy Wood Carbide tools. And so I don't have a clean cut ever anyway, or like not that clean. And you take them off, you rub them on a diamond, piece of diamond flat stone, and you can sharpen it. But like, I'm not working with an actual gouge that I constantly need to sharpen. And I probably won't worry about that until I start getting close to the end anyway. It's going to be pretty rough. Not going to worry about it too much till I get closer to my final shape. Then can sharpen it and then make as nice of a cut on the outside. So, yeah, good question. Anything else? Okay, so let's do, this last part is going to be kind of a fly by the seat of our pants and see how it goes. So don't need that anymore, or at least not for a bit. I got one more slide. Okay, so this piece would be something that you could get. This is a, yew that was pulled out of the ground. You can see the roots down here. You can see the branches. And I'm lucky, my family has a landscaping business, so my dad and uncle pulled them out and I get to work with them. I have pulled them out in the past, but for a while it's been them and I just get to use them. But from this, you can put this on the lathe as is. My lathe doesn't have, the diameter, and my quill is too short, so I would have to do something with the branches to get it onto the lathe anyway. But you could use just a really long tailstock and just hold it there like that. And if you have your branches, the less that you cut away at the beginning, the more you have to work with. So like this piece here, it would have been the same thing. We've got branches coming up and then the roots coming out, and you can actually see that it kind of follows the same pattern. Wide, thin at the one main stump, and then it widens out. But I've got some natural edge kind of thing coming up here, but some of them are cut flat because I would have cut it on the bandsaw, and now it's no longer a natural edge, but I'll try and finish it to look kind of natural. But if you don't cut it flat, you can get all the way natural and have some nice figure at the top. So that's something you can think about. But for me, I would take this to the bandsaw, and I've got, we'll see. I went ahead and I cut all of these off already and then glued them back on because we didn't have access to a bandsaw. So we've got a few more. See that? Usually it takes longer and is tougher, but okay. So now we have this piece. And this I could put on my lathe. If we put our center here, then we would have to drill out a round hole. If we put our center here, then it's a natural edge hole. Like I already mentioned, I'm going to take that one off too. Like I already mentioned, we could use this shape, and we could probably get this kind of piece, and our outside shape would be this. Okay, you guys see that? So there's one guy, I forget his name, but he does the barely wood pieces. Have you guys seen those? This would be how he would do it. He would take a piece that's got an elbow in it and then would carve the outside shape is there, and the inside you don't have to do too much hollowing because it's already got that shape. So let's actually I got a few more of these. Okay.
Snap them across the lathe.
Well, I didn't want to break the lathe, you know.
I dropped it once. That blade's not gonna break.
Okay. So, so we'll put this on as is, and then we'll just kind of like see what it looks like as it turns. Okay. Like I said, we're flying by the seat of our pants here on this one. But this is how I usually do it, flying by the seat of my pants, and we'll figure it out as we go. So, okay, so that'll spin. And it is a little unbalanced now, so obviously go slow, but okay. Actually, that's perfect because now it took off the piece that was glued on there pretty good. I got one more. You said I can hit it on here?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've removed most of it. Okay, so this would be how I would often start, just because, again, my lathe only has 10 inches, and so if I've got any bit of unbalance on there, it's not fun. And also mine doesn't have like the adjustable speed. It starts at 700 RPMs, so you kind of turn it on and you turn it off immediately as you stand at the side. So yeah, even though I tossed that first one, I'm experienced at dodging. So I apologize to those of you in the crowd that may not be as experienced at dodging. But okay, so we've got this piece. This is easier to work with and to think about. And I'm going to put the center here to start with. And I'll put it this way as well, just because I think it's got a better grip. And we'll center it on the top. Okay. What's that?
What is the drive bit?
This one's just a four thing chuck. Yeah, mine has the bunches, it's the smaller.
We don't have a step center, do we?
There we go.
We don't have a step center, do we?
Yeah, I like that because you've got more surface area and more contact, whereas this, if you're missing, like right now, I've only got 3 of the teeth in there, so I like to have, you work with what you got kind of thing. But this one should spin less dangerously. But if you look from the side, you can see, the shadow lines versus you can see where there's full wood. And I don't know what view you guys have. Okay.
There's enough full wood there.
Yeah, so I'm going to turn it up a little bit just to... Okay. Yeah. So if you're going to turn it all the way to get a cylinder that's full wood cylinder, like if you're going to turn a wig stand out of it or something, you're only going to have 2 inches at the very middle to work with. But if you're making something like this, you don't need to worry about that. You can turn an outside shape, and for me, I'm seeing that it's a little thicker down here, and it's thin in the middle, and a little wider there. So I could make, say, this piece out of that. There we go again. So I could make this piece out of that based on what wood I already have. From there, you can think and apply one of those would work. Do we have a knockout bar for this guy?
Yeah.
It's on the front. Oh, here it is. Okay. So we might get a little better grip here. There's that. Thank you. Appreciate it. This will work here. Okay. So we may have less for you guys to catch out there in the crowd. But what's that? Yeah. Well, if he hasn't learned in the past 5 minutes, Okay, so I'm going to put this one in the same spot, but I'm going to move the center over here a little bit, and we'll see what that ends up looking like. And we're going to have better grip because this is a flat all the way, it's a flat piece of wood, so we'll have better grip as well, even though it will be more out of round and unbalanced. But because we've got more teeth, we can put it in tighter. And usually when I'm doing it on my lathe, I tighten it up a lot. And I tighten it even more, and I keep tightening it. Okay, so this one's also going to be off center. But you can see that we even have an even wider base now. and we've got the same size at this spot here. So we could make a vase that opens up pretty wide, but when we do that, we're going to have half of it's going to be missing, but we do have solid wood at the base. You know, you can see that we've got about 2 inches, 2.5 inches over here at the headstock that's going to be pretty solid wood that we have to work with. So what shape do you want to apply to that? You know, that's your call. And so that's why I would say have 30 different pieces, you know, pictures online, Pinterest, that kind of thing. Just have a book of, I know that there's the book of 500 wooden bowls. I don't know if they have one for vessels. Pick out shapes that you like, have a bunch of different ones, and look at this and see which ones you can apply to this, and you can apply any of them to any of the shapes. Obviously, if you've got a bigger, more round piece of wood, or more solid piece of wood like that, you can apply more shapes. But for me, I kind of like the challenge of what am I going to do with this? Okay, so let's move it a little bit more. So I'm going to put the center back in this hole. So if this was the top and I hollowed it, it would be a natural edge center. But I'm going to now move this side elsewhere. And we'll just see what kind of shape we have there. Does this make sense, what I'm kind of talking about and showing? I know that it's hard to show the lines that I'm meaning, but we're looking at either where the ghost of the wood is or where the solid pieces are. And usually, I think most of us are probably used to getting rid of any ghost lines and working with only solid, but you don't have to do that. So,
Suggestion.
Yes.
You're using a pointed center. If you use a cup center, it'd be a lot safer.
Absolutely. Did everyone hear that? He said that right now I'm using a pointed center. If I used a cup center, it would be a lot safer. And in mine, I do have, it's a cup center with a point, and I absolutely agree. This is just what we had in the box, and so this is what I've got. But yeah, there's a few reasons I don't like this as much. This will dig in, and it'll split the wood out, and I don't like that. I would rather have it pushing and have the surface area being pushed in rather than digging a hole in as it goes and being a wedge. So, okay, let's see what this looks like. Okay, so I moved the bottom piece, and can you guys see that the middle is now thicker than it was? So these are the kinds of things that get it started. Take a look at what you have in your mind what shape you might want, and if your center was, if the way we had it, this middle part was way too thin, stop it, move your centers, and now you've got a lot thicker of a middle to work with, and you can do whatever shapes that you want out of this. And yeah, I think that that's probably about good. I don't know if there's too many. This is a pretty thin piece of wood, but you can cut this if you wanted to have a more spherical shape. Let's say this, but mini, or even a sphere. There's no sense, you don't need to use the full piece of wood as it is. I like doing that just because it's a challenge, but if I have to make a sphere, take this back to the bandsaw, cut it in the middle, and now you've got this piece, which is a good spherical piece in the middle, and use it, there. So if you've got your shapes in mind that, hey, I like this shape, then make your piece of wood match that shape as well. Now it's a combination of you matching what you have in your mind to the piece of wood, but also seeing what the piece of wood has. It's not so much the wood speaking to you, it's just, making it so it's easier or making it work, I guess. So that's kind of what I got. Like I said, it was going to be a little bit of a, we'll kind of play with it. Are there any questions about that process or anything that we want to see with this? Again, I don't even need to turn anything, I don't think, but you can see what that means. I guess we could put that on and see what that looks like on the lathe. So does anyone have any questions or recommendations or anything? Comments? Okay. Yes?
So I've tried some stuff that is white over here, this big. When do you get a sense, I didn't get a sense of when there's enough wood still left to support what you do. Like this one that you brought in, the one on the left,
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem like there's enough there to support the turning of the top.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that's a hard question to answer. The how much wood is necessary to support it is a little bit of a like physics question, but also a comfort level question.
I guess there was more there when you did the top.
Yeah, when I did the top and I did the outside first, and actually let's switch it back over to PowerPoint. Yes, but on this like list of final tips, I say there's no such thing as cheating, but on here I use a steady rest, and especially on this one because it's pretty tall and pretty wide, and I do have a full circular piece, I can have the steady rest here, and that makes it a lot safer. I would also say on many of these pieces, like this one that I knew I was going to be going pretty thin at, you can use tape. Tape it up for your safety and also just to make it sturdier because, as it's going fast, you'll have wood movement and that kind of thing. So use tape. So I say here, there's no such thing as cheating, and that's kind of as much for me as it is for you guys because, you go to some of these symposiums, you see people turning and they're talking about like, well, you have to use gouges. Or, if you use sandpaper, if you're using the 80 grit tool, then you're not that good. But the end result is the important thing. So how you get there isn't that important. So if you drill out the holes at the beginning, like in this piece, why, there's nothing against drilling out a hole to make your job easier. All of turning, all of the new things that have come about are to make turning easier, and they exist for a purpose, so make it easier. Drill out your holes at the beginning. Use a steady rest. And on any of these that have either a full circle or even most of a circle, you can use a steady rest or you can use tape and layers of tape to make it a full circle so that it'll spin and you don't have as much wobble and you can work a lot safer from a lot farther away. So use a steady rest, tape, glue, epoxy. If you've got pieces that fall off and break off, clean them up separately, glue them back on. You know that they're there. A wood turner might look and see it. It'll be tougher on one of these pieces, or it could be tougher to see that it's a mess up, but no one else knows. So use those, use sandpaper, use a Dremel and, hand carve it, hand sand it afterwards. Yeah, it'll take more time to do, but you can get a better product at the end and make it however you want. And whether there's a sphere jig for making your spheres, you don't have to hand turn it and eyeball it. You can use a jig, you can use a hollowing system. I think that, we just had or will be having one on like the elbow hollowing system. You can use one of those. I happen to just use, easy wood tools and, a lot of force and strength as I'm getting there, but, make your job easier, and they're not as intimidating as you think. And when you're, like I tried making the point at the beginning, when you're using wood that's got inclusions and holes and stuff like that, it actually can be easier. It's counterintuitive. It doesn't seem like doing this would be easier than hollowing a full-blown, all the way smooth shape on the outside. But there are some advantages, at least in my opinion, to doing that. So those are some of my last tips, and that's all I've got for this. Yeah.
Cody, when you said use tape, what kind of tape have you used?
It depends. I've used duct tape. I think
painter's tape.
I think any of it would work. I've got more painter. I got a bunch of painter's tape, so I use some of that. But I've used duct tape in the past. One of the things with duct tape is it'll leave sticky residue on there, so you can use some paper towels underneath of it and then tape over it. Because you can also use, let's say if I'm putting a steady rest on this guy, and I'm putting it near the top, because the higher up you put the steady rest, the sturdier it's going to be. But if I've got this inclusion, pack it with paper towels and tape over it to get it as close to a smooth surface as you can. I was saying here, if you got that spot, pack it with paper towels and then tape over it. But painter's tape, packing tape, it all kind of works the same. And if you don't have too much force going into it, it won't break out. If you're using it for stability, to make sure that you don't have a catastrophic, you know, it explodes. You maybe knots, you know, Scotch tape or, you know, but more tape will be safer, so I don't think that that's that important.
Yeah. Scott and I are currently working on a piece that we thought the wood is not that stable, so we had better hold it together while we're doing the interior of it. So we wrapped it with shrink wrap. Oh gosh, 5, 6, 7 courses. Then we took the aluminum duct tape, or the aluminum tape that they put,
Furnace tape.
huh?
Furnace tape.
Yeah, furnace tape, and then wrapped that around 3 or 4 times, and then put hose clamps on it. And it took, what, 3 6-inch hose clamps? Yeah, 3 6-inch hose clamps to come down and tighten it and hold that piece so that we could do the interior and get it done without it coming apart on us.
Was it successful?
Yes. Yeah, I got the piece in the car. And it was also a piece that had significant amount of bug stuff in it. I'm currently working on getting rid of all the remains of the bugs that went through it.
I've used black electrical tape for things like that, and it works pretty good because it's stretchy, got some tension, and it'll conform to almost any shape.
Yeah.
That's, like I said, I've used 5 or 6 different type of tapes for similar situations. Almost.
Yep.
Horse leg wrap was.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep. Horse leg wrap. And, yeah, no,
You can buy it for people as $10, and you can buy it for a horse as $3.
absolutely. I have used that for a while for like wrapping up ankles and stuff like that. Yeah, don't ever get it for people because it's the same as for horses. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Anything, concerns, anything like that? For future, I mean, like I said, this was my first demonstration. Other than throwing pieces of wood into the audience, any recommendations on things can be gone into better or shown better?
You did a real good job.
Yeah.
I like the
Yeah, for your
PowerPoint.
first one, you did great.
Yeah,
Thanks.
well laid out.
Cool.
Not necessarily for this, but I've used it a few times in the shop now, and it works out great. So a 2-inch PVC pipe. I'll take it over to the bandsaw and cut a few notches in it. And then you can take that, you know, spread out around your piece.
Okay.
Take, like clamp or tape or whatever, and take that. So that works as a pretty good chuck. And then that 2-inch on there is good for the standard size chuck, where you can just expand it out.
Yeah. No, I like that. Yeah.
Especially for tall, long pieces.
Gotcha. So I think that I'll send out this PowerPoint presentation when we get the minutes for this month so that you guys have this to go back to refer to. But if there's ever any more questions, reach out to me. You know, happy to share. I mean, I obviously enjoy doing this.
What kind of finish do you like to use?
Most of the time, I just use wipe-on poly. So I think that this most recent one is a higher gloss wipe-on poly as compared to just like a semi-gloss, but wipe-on poly seems to do well. A lot of these are hand sanded eventually, because if you're sanding it on the lathe and you've got these inclusions, you're going to just smooth out all of them and you're not going to get crisp lines. So if you've got a good sharp tool and you've got your lathe speed going well, you can get a clean cut. I don't get that usually, and so there's a lot of sanding, which, I mean, you can use the belt sander or whatever, orbital sander, but eventually I usually go up to, I think on a lot of these, I think the Sphere is a really good example. I spent a lot of time finishing it. I think it's up to like 5,000 grit, and that's by hand. So you can take a look and feel this, but if you did it on the lathe, you're going to round over all of those holes. So sandpaper and then wipe-on poly works fine for me. Yep. All right. Well, that's what I got.